Hi everyone, I'm Rashmi, founder of Fresh Menu. Today we have Chef Ranveer with us. He needs no introduction. We've all watched him cook food so effortlessly on TV with 4 million subscribers on YouTube, 1.6 million on Insta. I think today he's making India binge watch food content. My first question to Ranveer, let's jump straight in. How did it all start? Where did the love for food come from?
Hi, Rashmi, and hello, everybody. Such a pleasure being here. I think love for food is something all Indians are born with, so that doesn't really need a lot. You're Indian, and love for food sort of automatically fits in. I think the food content bit started when I came back to India from the US. I'd been cooking 17 odd years, and the question then was, how long can you just continue wearing a white chef coat and cook? Do you want to do just that for the rest of your life? How will you evolve your relationship with food? And that is when this is 2012. That's when I started dabbling with food television as an extension of my relationship to food. And I think that opened this window of food media or food content per se. And then you've just sort of worked with the medium, evolved with the medium, tried to be a disciple of the medium, for the lack of a better word.
Okay. So Ranveer and we at Fresh Menu also, did try and keep building content around food because you're constantly cooking food. My learning is that content is a very laborious process. Like what looks so easy in front of the screen, behind the scene, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of team to work towards it. So how do you motivate and prepare for it?
I think content, the approach to content is slightly different when it comes to food content. With normal content, the objective of content, as I'd like to believe, is to touch, move, and inspire. Right now, when it comes to food content, the objective is to touch, move, inspire, and act. You want people to cook it or eat it or order it. So there's a very clear call to action without there being a call to action. And I think that's the difference between every other content and food content. And what that difference does is it allows us to, you can't really create this content if you don't genuinely believe in the space. And that is not your core as much as your core business. And I think that's where a lot of us sort of make this learning, take this learning as we go. I have felt that food content cannot be just an also ran because it's supporting something else. I think it's just it's a beast that needs to be tackled in itself because it's touch, move, inspire, and act. So if anything else, it requires more time and effort than regular content because there are more action points. So you can't deny that. You can't deny it being laborious. You can't deny the fact that you need a dedicated bit. You can short circuit a few processes, but it shows. To give you an example, I shoot 3 recipes a day. That's about it. Sometimes 2. But the objective is that when I go there, I'm sure this is what I want to cook, and nobody cuts, nobody chops for me. The stuff is kept there, and it is as if I was cooking for myself or for somebody else. So and that's what shows in the long run. It shows because people connect to it stage by stage. You're connecting to it stage by stage. And yeah, it might reflect as a 12-minute or a 15-minute recipe. But I believe there is no shortcut and there should be no shortcut to a good food and good food content.
Yeah, I've personally followed your recipes and content, and you make it look very, very easy. So, how do you, as a team, how do you set measures, or what kind of metrics do you look at, and how do you, because content, it could be like an ocean, right? You can keep creating content in isolation. How do you measure that it is adding up? It is, like, is it reach? Is it conversion? Do you have some tips over the years? How have content strategy moved? Things that you got wrong or you had to fix on the way. This is for more people, more budding entrepreneurs who would really love to understand more details.
So Rashmi, over the years, what I've realized is basically I've been doing television since 2012. We've done more than 15 odd shows, and there is a certain way you do television. Initially, we thought that you know the medium and that should sort of solve the problem. What we've realized is that it's not so. You know, it's very different, and each medium needs to be respected in its own. Initially, we tried to do a lot of television content on the digital space, didn't really work. Also, what we have learned over a period of time is digital content is very personal, right? Because you're watching it on a phone right there, and television's very for the family. You know, we still watch things together, and I think it's just not just the tonality; it is just how you treat digital content that's very, very different as compared to how you treat television content in terms of grandeur, in terms of personalization. So I think that has been our learning and our failures where we sort of picked up from. And yes, I do understand that, you know, there is an algorithm, there's a matrix, there is a demand backwards ecosystem when it comes to content. You know, you look at what people are looking for, and then you reverse engineer your content towards what people are looking for. But that always doesn't necessarily drive the content ecosystem. You know, I think unpredictability is also very important. I think the ability of digital content to, for instance, it's like food, right? You know, there's instant gratification with digital content. You get the response right then and there. A video goes up, your comments come.
It's not like comments, yeah.
It's not like you're waiting for weeks for a television show and then, you know, you get a few emails. So so because of that instant gratification, I think it's also a responsibility to educate people who are with you. It's also a responsibility to do more and not just be a reverse engineered demand backwards distribution channel. And I think that's been our learning. That's been our learning, you know, I'd say in the last couple of years.
Yeah. And right now you must have seen there's a flurry of, you know, direct to consumer brands, and obviously everyone wants to reach to millions of consumers. Content and commerce in general did not go well together. Do you see trend shift? Do you have some advice for people trying to mix content and commerce?
Yeah, I think it's audience backwards. I always say, you know, it's always consumer backwards. And if I were to look at the West, and if I were to look at how the West is integrating content and commerce, I think there's a definite roadmap and that can be followed. Also, my personal learning in the space has been that the consumer of today is way more acceptable of the fact that content needs money to produce, and it's okay these guys also need to make money, and it's not charity. Because they need to make money, they need to integrate brands. Um, so there is a certain level of acceptability, definitely in the consumer's mind, to what it was 2 years ago. Um, how we take it forward, how much can you stretch the bill, if you were to say that, is something that time will tell. But I think where we are, especially in the digital space, the consumer is now aware and accepts the fact that that content needs to be monetized, that content needs to, there needs to be, it's okay for a brand to show up, um, or somebody to talk about a brand in the content. Um, as far as the dichotomy of it goes, dichotomy of content and commerce, you said they don't go well together. I was of that opinion for a really long time. I was a content purist, and I felt, the message gets diluted the moment you sort of, the moment the consumer senses a little bit of adulteration in it. I think the consumer has evolved, and so have we. I look forward to that space with a lot of excitement, with a lot of tech interface, with a lot of technology help to making things more subtle. Tap to buy is just a beautiful example of, I mean, why, if you're doing it in the US, it's an easy thing. When Ranveer's cooking on a pan, all you need to do is a tap to buy button right on top. Nobody really minds it. It's completely your choice. Also, with the voice platforms, I think the voice platforms, um, um, even though the reach might not be an astounding number compared to the conventional digital. See, we're using conventional digital now. That's the term that we're now using. But conventional digital platforms obviously reach a lot more people. But with voice platforms, I've realized the opportunities are even bigger. Platform that, when you're shopping through Alexa, or when you're listening a recipe on Alexa, and you have a need to impulsive shop, you don't really mind. I think it's also up to us as creators or influencers, how far and how hard we fight this battle of being subtle and yet putting the message through, till the brands reach a space where they get it. Right now, unfortunately, the sales function and the marketing function is very, very, very number driven. And it says, and it's always, and it's at least a lot of spaces, you see them trying to hard sell, saying, ye bhi boliye, ye bhi boliye, ye bhi boliye, ye bhi boliye. I think till then, and it will change. It will change because when people see subtle methods of commerce in content working, they will change. Till then, I think it's also up to creators to fight that fight of subtle integrations, so that the space, the sanctity of the space remains.
Yeah, no, I think well put. This is exactly, and I think times are changing every year. You see consumers becoming more and more savvy and more accepting of how things are evolving over platforms. So coming to consumers, I think there is so much evolution, and they're looking so much around food, ingredients, looking at what's happening around the world. I think lockdown also put a lot of us in different frames of mind. I remember last year, a lot of people were looking at indulgence because sitting at home, and after a few months of lockdown, people were really bored. And even on our platform, a lot of people were just ordering indulgence food to begin with. And now I think after this 1.5 years of on and off lockdowns, we are, I think, now seeing back to fitness, and everybody's talking about losing the kilos that they've piled on through these times. So what are what's your view on the consumer behavior, especially over this pandemic period? And I think it's been an extraordinary time for all of us. How do you see brands can stay ahead and stay agile during these times, or what's coming up next?
Well, I think there is a definite, and it's not an evolution, an explosion. We've jumped a decade in these 2 years,
Yeah.
in terms of how we distribute content, how the content reaches out to you, how the content is consumed, um, actionability of content, and just the whole content ecosystem. And I don't have numbers to share, but I'm pretty sure this behavior can be ratified rationally with numbers as well. And I think that's, once you move 10 years ahead, and a curve suddenly spikes, there is bound to be dips, and there is bound to be a little bit of yo-yo effect later for things to really settle down. And I think we have to be ready for it. We have to be ready for a lot of, I wouldn't say uncertainty, but a lot of new things happening, a lot of trials happening in the space, a lot of money coming into it, a lot of failures, a few successes. Next year and a half, next 2 years are going to be very exciting for the space. Um, Suddenly the space is exposed, the opportunity is bigger, and hence it's understandable that there's going to be a lot of movement in the space. Things are going to settle down after 2 years. Um, there are going to be, like you said, there are going to be extreme, diametrically opposite reactions. There are going to be extreme emotions. There are going to be extreme successes and extreme failures in the space, because suddenly when something jumps up 10 years, it is bound to rationally find an equilibrium. And I think in that finding the equilibrium, a lot of things are going to be difficult to understand, and we have to be ready for everything in the next 2 years. As far as the consumer behavior, like you said, goes, what content does is appeals to an emotion, right? And we as human beings are essentially bundles of emotions, right? Content appeals to a certain emotion that's prevalent in the social subconscious at that point in time, and that becomes relevant content, whether it is movies of yesteryears or digital content of today. And I think that is not going to change. If people, it is natural for people to look for healthy food when they, but that's also acceptable. This is also acceptable tomorrow. I think human behavior and collectives, and an understanding of collective subconscious is still the key to be ahead of the game. And I always say, whether it was the Raj Kapoors or the Subhash Ghais of yesterday or the Karan Johars, the reason they were successful is because they had the pulse of human behavior. They had the pulse of collective subconscious, and they put content out that worked for it. And I think that still is the formula. There's nothing else that can really change. The only thing that has changed is how you're putting it out there, how you're distributing it, and how you're expressing it.
Yeah, it's so packaging driven, right? I think every generation there's a new packaging around the emotions. I think you very rightly said. As a food expert, and you're seeing right now a lot of trends around keto, vegan, plant protein. I think the world's really working very, very hard to build out tons of plant protein solutions. If I remember when I was growing up, sugar and ghee were the real villains in our diet, and suddenly he's the good guy, and all we're trying to let go is carbs. So as a food expert, how do you see these green shoots, new trends coming up in the food space? How do you see that evolving?
Well, I think conventional wisdom is time tested, whether it is ghee or stuff that we've grown up eating. It is not, these are not facts. They've been tested. They're genetically ingrained into us over millennia, right? And so it's like, that's the universal law. You really can't deny it. You can close your eyes towards it, but it doesn't change. So that conventional wisdom aspect of health is going to stay. We are going to become more aware and more accepting of it. If at all, while we are hailing vaccines, and we should, there was a time when we saw the limitations of medicine, when we saw that not everything has an instant solution, when we said eat well for immunity, when we said get enough sunlight if you want to stay away from COVID, when we said eat citrus, we realized that medicine has limitations, that science has limitations, diet does not. And that is ingrained. It's not gone anywhere. We might be excited about the vaccines, and we should be, but the fact that food is the original medicine is here to stay. And conventional wisdom regarding that food is something that's in our collective subconscious for a really long time. We are going to trust conventional wisdom in food a lot more. That's one. Second is because of what we have done irresponsibly to the planet in the last 50 years, some truths are staring at us in the face. You really can't, you can't deny that. And plant protein is an outcome of that. Veganism is an outcome of that. And I think, especially when I look at the next generation, they don't look at being vegan or being or having plant proteins or being vegetarian as a fad. They look at it as a personal and social responsibility towards the planet for it to heal. And when you attach conversations like this to beyond personal goals or beyond personal motivations, they become lifestyles, right? And that's why these are here to stay. As far as keto and different names that these diets take, I always say they will come and go. Because and that's what their objective is. Their objective is to sort of be placed at the right time, be demand backwards. But what is genuinely going to stay is an awareness towards foods that are planet responsible, sustainable, and a collective subconscious acceptance of conventional wisdom and food as medicine.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Ranveer, last question. What is on your plate these days? What's Ma cooking for you? What are you cooking for Ma? And any fun tips for viewers today?
Well, so we at home, we are mom, for example, at home, we are very, very simple eater there. We are mostly vegetarian. Other than that, when I am going out, I'm looking at a lot of temple cuisine. I'm trying to work on some temple food. There's also a book on Lucknow coming up, so that's taking a lot of time. But other than that, it's just spending time at home, something that I wasn't used to, but I've discovered the joys of in the lockdown, and that's what's really the objective and nothing more. I think that's what the lockdown has taught us a lot about the need to slow down and spend time with people who really matter.
Yeah, I wish we could have done this session in person, but yeah, hopefully sometime very, very soon.
Sure, no, it was a real pleasure speaking to you, Rashmi. Look forward.
Thank you.